Friday, November 9th, and this is Fox and Friends First, happening right now at 4 a.m. This Fox News alert for you. You saw the chilling video capturing the moment a night of fun turns into an unthinkable nightmare. What we just learned about the California gunman's troubling past as police search for a motive.
He's down here for one purpose: steal this election. I'm going to be the U.S. Senator. I'm going to fight this all the way, and we're going to win this.
And showdown in the Sunshine State as Democrats are they trying to steal the election? Well, the major legal step Rick Scott just took to try and keep his future Senate seat. And you can board early if you're a service member traveling with a family. What about with a particular allergy? The brand new perk to passengers. Fox and Friends First starts right now.
50 people were inside that bar at the time of the shooting, many of them college students. Heather?
Yeah, and our hearts go out to all of those families, all of those victims. Adam Housley, who previously worked here at Fox News, his niece among those. All right, thank you so much, Jackie. Well, Acting Attorney General Matthew Whitaker has no intention of bowing out of heading the Russia probe. Now, this is according to the Washington Post, after more than a dozen Democrat state attorneys general demand his recusal. Now, their letter suggesting that Whitaker has been hostile towards the Mueller investigation. They want Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein to supervise the probe. We'll have more on that coming up. And Nancy Pelosi says that she is 100% confident that she will be the next House Speaker after Democrats retook control of the chamber.
It's an urgency that I can't resist. I mean, if Hillary Clinton had won, our Affordable Care Act would be protected and I could go home. No one in California ever gets Potomac fever. We always want to go home. But that didn't happen, sadly, for our country.
The former speaker from California says that she's receiving tremendous support after announcing her run. 23 new and incumbent House Democrats have said that they are against Pelosi grabbing the gavel. Well, the other big story this week, the midterm elections, and they're far from over, go figure. Democratic election officials in Florida sued by Governor Rick Scott, accused of trying to steal his election to the Senate. And Griff Jenkins joins us now live from Washington, D.C. with the latest on what Scott is calling rampant fraud. Good morning, Griff.
Good morning, Heather. Here we go again. Two of the closest watched races in the country appear likely headed for a recount in the nation's recount capital, Florida. In the race for the Senate, Governor Rick Scott's lead over Senator Bill Nelson is narrowing out of 8 million votes. Scott leads by less than 18,000 votes, or 0.22%. As Nelson prepares for a potential recount, Governor Scott is suing the Democrat election supervisors in Broward and Palm Beach counties, accusing them of rampant fraud and calling on the Florida Department of Law Enforcement to investigate.
Yeah, we won. I'm going to be the U.S. Senator. I'm going to fight this all the way. We're going to do everything we can. We're looking at every legal remedy we can exercise. We're going to fight this, and we're going to win this.
Now, under Florida law, any race with a margin of 0.5% or less automatically goes to a recount. And in the race for governor there, also in the razor-thin recount territory, Democratic Tallahassee Mayor Andrew Gillum, who conceded the race to Congressman Ron DeSantis on Tuesday night, is now gearing up for a fight, according to his lawyer.
He's just waiting for the system to play itself out. This is part of the electoral process. It's part of the vote counting, and he'll accept the results.
DeSantis' lead over Gillum is roughly more than 38,000 votes, or 0.44%. And finally, Heather, it's not all about Florida. In Georgia's race for governor, Democrat Stacey Abrams is counting on uncounted absentee provisional ballots to force a runoff with Republican Brian Kemp. But Kemp, the current Secretary of State, says there are not enough votes left to force it, less than 22,000. So we'll see what happens, but it's certainly not over yet.
All right. Well, when you're talking about Florida, do a hashtag, what is it, hanging chads again. Thank you so much, Griff. Well, as Griff was just mentioning, Democrats pitting their hopes on recounts to keep Florida and Arizona races in play. He also talked about Georgia. Well, national security analyst Morgan Ortagus points out that these are only happening in races where Republicans have leads.
So there's two things that we excel at in Florida. It's hurricanes and recounts. So this is the season for both of those things. I think what's going on here is this is almost, at this point, it's almost a second election within an election. And we've really moved past, the general election. This is going to be coming down to legal, as you just said, lawyers and PR strategy. I think the one thing that the Florida recount has in common with the Arizona recount and with the Georgia recount is Republicans on the Senate and governor's races are ahead in all of these. So I think that there's a big lesson to be learned here from the Democrat side as it relates to Florida is you really saw the Republican machine that Rick Scott has built over the past 8 years of being governor really come out here.
Well, in Arizona, Democrat Kyrsten Sinema now holds a slim lead over Martha McSally. President Trump and First Lady Melania attending a special ceremony welcoming Justice Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. Kavanaugh joined by his wife and several former colleagues from the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. Well, Kavanaugh did not take the traditional walk down the courthouse steps. That was unfortunately over security concerns. But missing at that ceremony was Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who is now recovering after breaking 3 ribs. Of course, that raises new questions arising this morning on how much longer she will serve after falling in her office on Wednesday. The 85-year-old is the oldest Supreme Court judge or justice. If she steps down, President Trump would appoint a 3rd justice. And now to Thursday night football. Cam Newton since the Super Bowl. Well, the time now is about 10 minutes after the top of the hour. And cross the border illegally, lose your chance at asylum, the brand new immigration policy just unveiled by the Trump administration. And Jeff Sessions out at the DOJ. So who's on the short list to replace him as Attorney General? We are breaking down the top 3 front runners up next. Welcome back. You're watching Fox and Friends First. The rumored short list to replace former Attorney General Jeff Sessions now narrowed down, at least according to some rumors, to 3. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, outgoing Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, and South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham. But our next guest has his own list of contenders as well. So let's talk about all this. Here to explain who he thinks should get the job, Senior Legal Fellow for the Heritage Foundation, John Malcolm. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
It's great to be with you.
So the speculation begins immediately. Actually, it began a while ago because this wasn't a huge surprise to a lot of folks. Let's go through some of the folks that are rumored to be top of the list. But with this president, you never know what he's going to do. Let's talk about Pam Bondi, first of all. What do you think about her?
She's terrific, an outgoing Attorney General from the state of Florida, served the citizens of that state well. She's very, very bright. She's a rather dynamic personality, frequent speaker at Republican events. I have no doubt she'd do an excellent job if she gets the nod.
And Chris Christie, there's a familiar name to a lot of folks.
Yes, very high public profile for Chris Christie, former U.S. attorney from New Jersey, and then obviously went on to be governor. So, he has a lot of executive experience and knows the Department of Justice very, very well. Whether the president is going to want to put up with somebody who is that larger-than-life figure or not, remains to be seen. But he certainly knows Chris Christie well, and they have a relationship that goes back for quite some time.
All right, so we have to talk about South Carolina's Lindsey Graham. Speaking of high profile, the real Spartacus was the nickname that he took over after the whole Kavanaugh situation. What about him?
Yeah, no, I think that Lindsey Graham would also do an excellent job. He knows the Department of Justice extremely well. He is a lawyer. He was an Air Force lawyer and I think was an Air Force prosecutor for a number of years. And, he certainly did a tremendous job during the Kavanaugh hearings and has been very supportive of the president after starting out with a not so great relationship with the president when he first took office. I also think, by the way, his fellow South Carolinian Trey Gowdy, who's also a former federal and state prosecutor, will get a serious look. And there are other people I think will be looked at very seriously as well. Remember when Lindsey Graham,
it seems like a lifetime ago, released President Trump's cell phone number on Twitter and all of that happened? Yeah, but now they're buddies, so that's good. What about the acting Attorney General, Matt Whitaker? What about him taking over? permanently?
Well, he certainly has a lot of experience as well. He was a Senate-confirmed United States attorney from Iowa and served with distinction in that position. For the last year, he has been the chief of staff to Jeff Sessions, so he's certainly very familiar with Jeff Sessions' thinking, knows all of the political appointees at the department, and has a relationship of sorts with the president, and saying he must have accompanied Jeff Sessions to the White House on a number of occasions.
Now, a lot of people have a problem with this already, saying that he should not take over the Russia investigation. What does this mean? What does it mean moving forward? Should Whitaker stay in place, or one of these other folks take over for the Russia investigation?
Yeah, I think that any talk about interference by Matt Whitaker is certainly premature and probably far-fetched. Yes, when he was a commentator before becoming Sessions' chief of staff, he made comments, things like, well, if Mueller starts investigating the president's personal finances, that would be going too far. But I don't think he's done anything to really cross the line where one could really question his impartiality. And in addition to that, rumor has it that Bob Mueller is wrapping up his investigation and has prepared a report, and there's no reason to think that Matt Whitaker or any other incoming attorney general would do anything to scuttle either his investigation or the issuance of that report.
What about the role of Rod Rosenstein, though, in the investigation?
Well, Rod Rosenstein has been having day-to-day oversight of that investigation. I'm sure he's sleeping quite well at night since he no longer has to do that. I don't think that Matt Whitaker is going to denigrate Rod Rosenstein or interfere with Rod Rosenstein with respect to any kind of review of that report.
All right. Well, we will see if that pushes the Mueller report to come out sooner than later. Thank you so much, John. We appreciate you joining us.
My pleasure. Good to be with you.
Have a great weekend. Well, the time now is about 18 minutes after the top of the hour. Republicans keeping hold of the Senate as Democrats take control of the House. Why we could soon see a flood of conservative judges filling vacancies on the federal judiciary. And do you remember this? Well, the Trump administration rolling out a new immigration policy as the migrant caravan moves closer to the U.S. border. Under the policy, any migrant who attempts to cross into the country illegally will not be eligible to claim asylum in the U.S. unless they do so at an official border crossing. Well, this comes as a federal appeals court blocks the administration's move to end the Obama-era DACA program. A three-judge panel ruling it is, quote, not in accordance with the law. The Justice Department has asked the Supreme Court to intervene on DACA. And the ruling comes on the heels of President Trump's trip to Paris today. He is set to meet with world leaders as they mark 100 years since the end of World War I. He will be joined by the First Lady on the three-day trip. The president says he will not meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin there. The two are expected to sit down, though, at the G20 summit in Argentina at the end of the month. After holding the Senate, Republicans are now full steam ahead, approving President Trump's judiciary nominees.
The president, I think, has done an excellent job in picking young men and women who believe the job of judge is to follow the law. And we intend to keep confirming as many as we possibly can for as long as we're in a position to do it.
So, can they flood the courts with conservative judges? Here to discuss is Gail Trotter. She is a spokeswoman for the Judicial Crisis Network. Thank you so much for joining us so early this morning.
Great to be with you, Heather.
Let's take a look at some of the numbers so far. Since President Trump has taken office, 84 judges have been confirmed through the Senate, appointed by President Trump, 2 Supreme Court justices and 29 judges to U.S. appeals courts. So do you expect that trend to continue at this point?
Yes, the election results Tuesday night were a clear mandate for the Trump administration and the Senate to move, as you said, full speed ahead on filling up these vacancies in the federal courts. There are many vacancies. There have been many nominees. People are in the pipeline to go for their hearings, and there will be more nominees from the Trump administration. And this is a vitally important part of the president's job, and the Senate is there to evaluate and confirm these nominees who the administration is putting forward. And the public has shown that it appreciates the excellent nominees that that President Trump is putting forward and appreciates the hard work of the Senate to confirm these nominees, even in the face of stiff Democratic opposition.
Let's talk about that public appreciation as we continue to look at some of the court vacancies that you were just talking about. 111 U.S. district courts, 11 U.S. Court of Appeals open right now. We have these pending nominations as well, 48 in the U.S. district courts, 3 in the U.S. Court of Appeals. Something that the public did not apparently appreciate was the treatment of Judge Kavanaugh.
No, and we could call that another clear message from the election results. There is this Kavanaugh effect. If you look at the senators from states that went for President Trump 2 years ago, they either lost their elections or once all the votes are counted, they're probably going to lose their elections. You look at Heidi Heitkamp, Claire McCaskill, Joe Donnelly from Indiana, and probably Bill Nelson. And yet the one Senate Democrat who decided to put all of that aside and fairly judge Judge Kavanaugh and confirm Judge Kavanaugh to become Justice Kavanaugh, he won his election. So you can definitely see this Kavanaugh effect from the election results.
With all of these, appointments pending or openings on the court, we have a lot going on right now. The big story today, these lawsuits involving recounts in at least 3 different states. We also have the asylum changes and the migrant caravan moving forward. How will these appointments or potential appointments impact either one of those issues?
Right, and the nominees who are being put forward right now are fair and independent. So these are nominees who, if confirmed, they're going to follow the law. They're not going to put their personal political policy preferences into their decisions. They are going to be exactly the kind of judges that Americans want, who can rise above the politics, leave the legislating to the people and to the representatives of the people. And we've seen that with the quality of the nominees who have been put forward by the Trump administration. We're going to see the same quality of nominees going forward.
Yeah, and a lot of people concerned Ruth Bader Ginsburg falling and breaking 3 ribs. So we'll see how long she's on the court as well. Gail Trotter joining us live. Thank you, Gail.
Great to be with you, Heather.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Well, the search for a missing 13-year-old girl intensifying. The FBI releasing new surveillance video of a man that they want to question seen walking near Hanya Aguilar's North Carolina home around the time that she was taken on Monday. Look very closely. Authorities finding the stolen SUV used to kidnap her abandoned in nearby woods. And witnesses say she was forced into the vehicle after being snatched from her yard. Her mother keeping faith that she will be found safe. We'll keep the faith, too. Well, an Ohio man allegedly caught in the act trying to join ISIS pleads not guilty. Federal agents arresting 19-year-old Nasser Al-Madalji last month at a Columbus airport trying to fly to Kazakhstan. From there, the DOJ says that he was trying to sneak into Afghanistan for weapons training. Course records show that he wanted to start a civil war in the U.S. If found guilty, he could spend up to 20 years in prison. Nikki Haley setting the record straight. The ambassador to the UN explaining why North Korea canceled this week's meeting with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo.
They postponed it because they weren't ready. I do think the talks are going to be rescheduled, and it doesn't change the fact that that summit is still scheduled for the president and Kim to meet after the first of the year.
Well, Haley says that it is now North Korea's turn to act and that the U.S. stands ready to talk when they are. Headlines 24/7, Sirius XM 115 is here with how those lives are being remembered. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Heather. So the country music world is in mourning after a gunman opened fire inside the Borderline Bar and Grill, which is a country-themed music bar in Thousand Oaks, California. We know now killing 12 people inside. Among the dead, Sheriff Sergeant Ron Heelis, who was the first officer to enter the bar, and country music singer Charlie Daniels honored him in a tweet, saying, "Another blue knight was lost last night. He died in the act of protecting and serving, as so many of his brothers and sisters have before him. Sergeant Ron Heelis, you died saving lives. There was no higher calling. Rest in peace. Sincere condolences to the family and coworkers." Country singer Leanne Rimes also responded to the tragedy, saying, "Just seeing the news of the shooting in Thousand Oaks last night, I am heartbroken for the victims and their families. This one hits way too close to home. My heart is with everyone affected by this horrible tragedy. And yesterday, former Fox News correspondent Adam Housley and his wife Tamara Mowry Housley learned that their 18-year-old niece was killed in the shooting as well. They released a statement saying, "Our hearts are broken. We just learned that our niece Elena was one of the victims of last night's shooting at Barterline Bar in Thousand Oaks. Elena was an incredible young woman with so much life ahead of her, and we are devastated that her life was cut short in this manner. We thank everyone for your prayers and are asking for privacy at this time." This is the second mass shooting to affect the country music community in as many years.
Yeah, there were folks in that bar who survived both Las Vegas and survived that shooting there yesterday as well.
And a 27-year-old man who survived the Las Vegas shooting tragically died yesterday as well.
Watching their responses online yesterday was heart-wrenching, especially one of the dads. Let's talk about Snoop Dogg. Smoking marijuana near the White House, to switch gears completely. This message he has for the president, another message.
Right, so let's rewind for a second. First, he came out with this anti-Trump music video. All right, well, now he's adding marijuana to his anti-Trump message, lighting up right outside the White House. Watch.
I'm at the White House, nigga, smoke the president.
I mean, does this really surprise you? So some folks on social media, he posted that to Instagram, so he's going to get comments online saying, trying to stir up trouble just to get his name out there again? What's the purpose? And then another person on Twitter says, perfectly okay to disagree, but disrespect is uncalled for. So stirring some headlines there.
Looking for some attention, and we're giving it to him. So apparently his cooking show with Martha Stewart isn't doing very well.
Oh, no!
But I say that only because it's a segue to the Chicago diner.
There you go.
Okay, there you go.
It is a good segue. So what kind of foods do you like to eat for around Christmas? We've got candy canes. We have hot chocolate. Well, a hotel in Chicago is serving up a dish inspired by Buddy's menu in the hit classic Christmas movie Elf. Take a look. This is one of my favorite movies of all time, so I was very excited to see that. So Miss Ricky's Diner at the Virgin Hotel in Chicago is serving up a spaghetti sundae with strawberry raspberry sauce. It's got marshmallows, Pop-Tarts in it, M&Ms. I'm going to be in Chicago this weekend, so what do you think, Heather? Should I try it?
I don't know. I think someone that should try it or would like it would be Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much, Carly.
Thanks a lot, Heather.
And if you do try it, let us know.
I sure will. Can't guarantee it.
Well, Democrats are celebrating major victory after taking back power in the House on Tuesday. But is the left using this as an opportunity to push their far left agenda and block the president's, or is this an opportunity for both sides to put country over party and do what is best for the American people? Our next guest is a former Democrat who's now leading a movement away from the far left strategy that he says no longer matches his values. He's the founder of the Walk Away campaign, Brandon Straka. He joins us now with his thoughts. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
So you had your first big march in Washington, D.C. Back October 27th.
Yes.
Big turnout, over 1,000 folks.
Yes.
So a lot of people must agree with you.
I think a lot of people do agree with me. The campaign actually began on Facebook as a social media testimonial campaign. We now have about 215,000 patriots in the original Facebook group where this all began, and around 400,000 on all social media platforms. So yeah, I mean, we're definitely a growing presence.
But yet Democrats did take back the House, not entirely unexpected though.
Right.
But do you think that this would be an opportunity for less people to walk away from the party if they're willing to work together with Republicans?
I mean, it possibly could be, but do we know what their plan is?
Right.
I mean, we've been waiting for years to hear what is this plan. All we seem to hear is we hate the president, let's impeach the president, resist. Exactly. So what is this plan? I mean, I think that remains to be seen. I would love to be optimistic. I would love to believe that, you know, they want to come in with a spirit of cooperation. Let's work together. Let's do what's best for the American people. Again, that remains to be seen.
If more members of the party, like you, you're a former Democrat, if they choose to walk away, which is what your movement encourages, do you think that would force Democrats to, move in more of a conciliatory direction?
This is what has amazed me all along. So what I created here was a video testimonial campaign, and I've said time and again, if the Democratic Party would simply go into my group and watch the video testimonials, it's like a focus group for them. They could literally watch what the American people are saying and say, this is where we've let people down. This is where we've gone wrong. But they're not doing that at all. I mean, they're sticking with this "we hate the president" plan, and it's really not working.
And they seem out of touch.
Yes.
I mean, we can take a look at what happened in the midterm elections with their use of Hollywood celebrities, just as one indicator. Doesn't seem to have worked the last time around, back in 2016 for the presidential election. Doesn't seem to have worked for midterms either.
Well, I think they underestimate the intelligence of the American people. And this is time and time again, we're seeing that. And I have to be honest with you, I did too, as a former liberal. Since I've become a conservative, which I now consider myself, I've seen just how intelligent and informed these people on the right are. These people in middle America that, frankly, a lot of people on their left look down their noses at these people. But I think that they're much more informed than a lot of people on the left about how government works, what they want for. They're not going to be persuaded by Oprah Winfrey and Beyonce and Jay-Z. They know what's best for their families and their futures and their lives.
Yeah, which, when you talk about the Jay-Z's of the world and the Oprahs of the world, those are few and far between, and they can't really relate to middle America.
Correct.
Trying to get a paycheck, out there needing a job, working every day to, have your family succeed.
Well, and I think they're also not in touch with who these people actually are. And this has been a huge basis of me creating this campaign, too. I myself was shocked to find that, I feel bad saying it, but these people, these are really good people. These are good, patriotic people. And they're constantly portrayed by the media as racist, bigots, and that the president is exactly the same. That's absolutely not true at all. And so I think these celebrities on the left are completely out of touch with who the American people are.
Thank you so much for joining us. Good luck with your campaign. People can find you #walkaway.
Yes, and they can follow me at US Minority.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, the time now is about 20 minutes until the top of the hour, and a Democrat creeping in to steal a seat in Arizona while Brian Kemp declares himself the winner of the Georgia gubernatorial race. But Stacey Abrams still refusing to cave. The race is too close to call. You're watching Fox and Friends. First, you made it through the week. Well, the race for governor, Georgia governor specifically, turning into a battle after the polls close. Democrat Stacey Abrams refusing to concede as Republican Brian Kemp declares victory, resigning as Georgia's Secretary of State.
There are enough votes that have not been counted that could cause a runoff. We will litigate until we have determined that every person's vote has been counted.
Abrams called for Kemp's resignation over his role in overseeing the state's elections, prepping a lawsuit over unaccounted absentee ballots. And Kemp says that he is stepping down to transition to the governor's office. He's currently in the lead, but the race has not been called. And the Senate race in Arizona is still up in the air as well. Democrat Kristen Sinema barely pulling ahead of Republican Martha McSally, but election officials say they still have 400,000 votes to count. The race plays a big role in determining the scope of Republican control in the Senate. Well, driver danger. Hundreds of thousands of Subarus pulled off the need to know before we leave the house. Good morning.
Good morning, Heather. Yes, this is two separate recalls from Subaru. Over 400,000 vehicles involved in them. The first one covers about 229,000 2018 Outback and Legacy vehicles. That's because there's an issue with the software. The low fuel light can not display properly, so you may run out of gas, cause you to stall, which could result in an accident. The other issue covers about 166,000 vehicles. The 2012 to 2014 Impreza, 2013 BRZ, XV Crosstech, and the Toyota Scion FRS. The issue there is that the engine valve could break, which could also cause the vehicle to stall. So two very serious issues. Definitely you should get looked at if you have one of these.
An engine valve issue doesn't sound good. What about American Airlines? They're going to allow yet another group to board early?
Yes, starting on December 12th, if you suffer from a peanut or a tree nut allergy, you will be able to board your American Airlines flight early so that you're able to wipe down the area that you're sitting in to avoid any exposure to allergens. American Airlines making this change after receiving some complaints. Now, they say while they don't serve peanuts on the flight, there is, of course, still a chance that you could be exposed to the peanuts, which is the issue. Delta Airlines already allows something very similar.
So if you purchase an upgrade to board early, you have to wait till about 10 other groups board before you at this point.
Yes. You know, I'm not sure how they'll enforce this. Will you need a doctor's note?
Good
Will
question.
people say they have a peanut allergy? I don't know. It's a tough one.
All right. Thank you so much, Tracy.
Thanks, Heather.
Well, the time now is